Welcome, my friends, to the world of HeroQuest, a place unlike any other. If you're anything like me, you've spent countless hours in the dark, dangerous dungeons, battling greenskins and throwing punches with the dreaded Chaos Warriors. But did you know that during that same era, another incredible fantasy board game by Games Workshop was capturing the imaginations of fantasy players all over the world? A game with a different kind of adventure and a different kind of legend. The early 90s were a golden era of fantasy gaming, when the worlds of dice, miniatures, and sprawling board adventures collided. HeroQuest was luring players into its dungeons, Warhammer Fantasy Battle was cementing its place on tabletops, and Games Workshop was experimenting with bold new ways to expand its universe. Out of that creative storm came a game that felt familiar yet entirely different, a journey not into dungeons, but into destiny. That game was Talisman Third Edition. This is the Fair Weatherman. Welcome back to the channel. HeroQuest fans in the 90s were accustomed to a very special kind of journey. A classic dungeon crawl where a band of heroes take on a specific quest against Zargon and his chaotic minions of dread. But Talisman is different. Heroes adventure alone on a grand race across a mystical land, a quest not for a single objective, but for ultimate power, the crown of command. On your journey, you will encounter powerful enemies, discover friends and magical objects, and meet strange beings. This third edition was a huge moment in the game's history, a bold new take by Bob Harris and the team of creators at Games Workshop. They brought the game to life in a way HeroQuest players would instantly recognize. They replaced the cardboard heroes with incredible detailed plastic miniatures that looked right at home next to your vintage HeroQuest counterparts. The art for this sprawling world was changed to be more like its epic world of Warhammer Fantasy, a universe many of you might already know. With its colorful landscapes, full of intricately placed skulls, which litter the game board, Talisman Third Edition brings excitement beyond the dungeon and across vast worlds. The game was intended for 2 to 6 players and is best suited for players aged 9 and older, although my 7-year-old loves it. And the goal no longer was it to just reach the crown of command. Instead, players had to prove their worth by braving the formidable new Wizard's Tower to confront and defeat the mighty Dragon King himself. There's so much to unpack in this tiny box, I can hardly wait to show you. Let's get into this. If you like what you see, drop a comment, like, and subscribe for more HeroQuest and vintage tabletop role-playing games. I picked up this copy on eBay for around $60 over the summer. I saw it listed, and it dropped from its $100 starting bid to about $60. And lucky for me, I was the only one who placed a bid. But currently right now the game's going for around $150 for a pretty decent condition of the base game. One thing I noticed is that the gameplay plays out a lot like a fantasy version of Monopoly. And like Monopoly, each game can go on for hours. We often have the game set up in our dining room for a week on end, playing it 30-40 minutes at a time until we can get through it all. The game rules are very simplistic, covering a total of 3 pages, and with the addition of each expansion was the inclusion of a single page rule set to adapt the newest realms into your gameplay. The game is played on a beautifully illustrated board, split into distinct regions. Players begin in the outer region and must work their way inward, facing different challenges as they draw from the adventure deck and progress their way towards the center. At the start of the game, each player chooses a character, represented by a card and a corresponding plastic miniature. These characters have unique stats and special abilities, offering a wide range of play styles. It's recommended that you draw your character at random, as some of the characters have unique abilities that seem to be a little bit more unbalanced than others. The Chaos Warrior and the Minotaur are some of my son's favorites, and start out with a little bit more strength than other characters on the board. Your hero's abilities are defined by their strength for battle, craft for magic, lives, and gold. And because each game starts with a blind draw, you'll need to learn how to play your character's strength in order to make it to the end. Your hero's alignment, good, evil, or neutral, impacts how you can interact with certain cards and other players, allowing a layer of strategic depth in role-playing. Now I want to give a shout out to Ribby from Bourbon and Board Games, who sent me these really nice 3D printed base rings that allows us to visually see our players' alignment on the board. And when they reach places like the village, the chapel, the graveyard, the tavern, there are specific handicaps and advantages for your alignment. And you can easily swap out these rings if, for say, the Mystic allows you to change your alignment from good to evil. Between the original content and its 3 expansions that followed, there's a lot of material that will fill up your table with decks of cards representing each content area, a total of 200 in the base game alone. Throw in a handful of character cards, and your table quickly becomes unmanageable. With each one represented by a plastic mini, token, and gold coins, you'll have cards, dice, tokens, and gold pieces scattered throughout your game board by the time it comes to its conclusion. To make setup easier, I purchased a game organizer on Amazon from TowerRex for $25. It's intended to be used with the latest re-release, but since very little has changed mechanically, the trays work fantastic for this edition as well. Here you can see all the cards fit nicely in these easily accessible trays. With a few intentional swaps, you can keep all the plastic within arm's reach. The base game came with 11 plastic characters: the Barbarian, the Ranger, the Warrior, a Skaven, a Wood Elf, the Knight Templar, the Dwarf Warrior, and the Swashbuckler, and the Wizard. My copy arrived with all plastic miniatures intact, but missing one, the Goblin Fanatic. So I took to eBay and found a copy of a metal miniature set from the same time frame. It'll have to do for now until I can find the missing miniature. The base game also comes with a few toad tokens in the event a witch turns you into a toad. I happen to have a couple toad miniatures that I bought for HeroQuest that I'm going to paint up and add to the game. Shortly after the game arrived, I quickly removed all the slots from the bottom of the miniatures and rebased them on plastic 25mm bases. And most importantly, rebased the giant Minotaur, whose original stand is very wobbly. There's also the addition of a how to paint your models guide that was included in the game, with a really neat explanation of how to go about painting your miniatures in the 90s fashion. Something I'm going to refer to when I set about painting this set in the near future. This version of Talisman is aesthetically my favorite. The bright colors and cartoon drawings have so much character. It harkens to a time when fantasy was more whimsical and less realistic and scary. It's apparent who the target market was: 9-year-olds. I can't help but wonder if this was Games Workshop's attempt to transition HeroQuest fans out of the gritty dungeon and into the open world. As you move across the game board, you draw from various decks, including adventure cards, which can present you with anything from powerful treasures to monstrous enemies and surprising events. Among the many items you can find, talisman cards are special. This magical item is key in allowing you to enter the Dragon's Tower. In this edition, a new experience point system allows you to trade experience points gained from defeating enemies, which can be spent to gain additional strength, craft, or life points, giving you a chance to turn a losing situation into a victory. What's unique about this system is you no longer have to utilize pencil and paper to keep track of your character's stats. Everything is streamlined through the tokens and the cards that you acquire throughout the gameplay. And of course, like HeroQuest, Talisman Third Edition had 3 incredible expansions: City of Adventure, Dungeon of Doom, and Dragon's Tower, each adding new realms to explore and new challenges to overcome. These expansions offer more strategic choices and extend the grand journey across the land of Talisman. All of these expansions are quite expensive on the secondhand market, so I set out to custom build a few of them by searching the internet for scans of the cards as well as the boards. Can you tell which ones are original and which ones were recreated? I didn't think so. The first of 2 expansions were released in the same year as the original game, was titled City of Adventure, with 2 added board sections that are placed alongside the main game board, allowing players to enter a city realm and a forest realm. The 2 new sets of adventure cards bring out new events, enemies, and added treasure, with a new set of followers that can be encountered in the new realms. The box contained 6 new characters, each of which is represented by superbly detailed plastic Citadel Miniatures, along with 98 cards for both realms. The City of Adventure included 6 more characters: the Witch Elf, the Assassin, the Chaos Dwarf, a Dragon Slayer, and a Halfling. And since I homebrewed this expansion, I don't currently have those miniatures to add to my game. But I do have the addition of a Black Orc that I purchased for Warhammer Quest, because Games Workshop had a habit of interchanging a lot of these miniatures across all their board games in the early 90s. You can easily find replacements from other board games. The Dungeon of Doom added another 2 realms where characters can battle through the darkness of the dungeon underworld on your journey to collect a talisman from the Lord of Darkness, or wander into the opposing world that's just as enticing, as you scale the treacherous mountain cliffs on your way to fight the Eagle King. 6 more characters were added, as well as an additional 84 cards. The Beastman, the Fire Wizard, the Druid, a Shaman, a High Priest, and the Chaos Warrior, adding more depth to the game. And the last inexpensive one to track down is the Dragon's Tower, containing the most exciting content of the 3, with the addition of the 3-dimensional tower model and an evil Dragon King in the center of the board. Players must battle their way through the tower in order to defeat the Dragon King at the top. I love this addition to gameplay, allowing for a more dramatic finale, and there were many times someone battled their way to the top only to get rejected by the dragon and thrown back to the start. But is it worth the price for a plastic mini in a cardboard tower? I don't think so. With a few cardboard squares and a splash of Mod Podge, you can make your own expansion and place any old dragon mini on top. Originally we were using a 3D printed version that I had picked up on Etsy, but since the release of Crypt of Perpetual Darkness, we've since replaced that mini with a more menacing sculpt, which happens to be my favorite dragon mini out of the 2 we have in HeroQuest. As for the card scans I found on Board Game Geek, were just clear enough to make the deck of 28 cards, although I will admit there's probably 4 or 5 in there that are really hard to read. You can find the scans for the tower as well, and with a bit of Photoshop and rescaling the tiles to fit the initial square, you can easily create your own version of this expansion, saving you a couple $100 and earning yourself a lot of experience points in homebrew content. I'm practically a pro at this point. And lastly, the Dragon's Tower had the inclusion of 4 more characters: an alchemist, a chaos sorcerer, an astronomer, and a sorceress, which I've decided to print off their character cards and find proxies from HeroQuest to play in Talisman. And since I have a habit of playing these dead games, it's real easy to go online and find the files to print, allowing you to add the addition of these characters with little to no cost. No 90s Games Workshop game would be complete without the addition of expanded material released in White Dwarf magazine. Released as a promotional feature for the upcoming expansions, new characters included the Thief, Necromancer, War Dancer, Dragon Rider, Ogre, Dark Elf, Vampire, and Swordsman, most of which are nearly impossible to come by 30 years later. If I had to pick one expansion to spend my money on, it would have to be the Dungeon of Doom, because these 2 additional worlds add so much more to the existing game. I could hardly imagine playing without them, and as much as I like the monsters found in the forest realm, I feel the city is lacking most out of the bunch. And let's be honest, the Dragon Tower is a lot of fun, but after multiple playthroughs and hours of gameplay, you can hardly tell that half of this game was printed on empty cardboard boxes. I'm really thrilled with the results. After over a week of playing Talisman with my son, My ranger character climbed the wizard's tower, faced a horde of skeletons left by the wizard, and got to the treasure room. The air in the dragon's lair was thick with smoke and smelt of burnt rock. The ranger stood battered and bruised, his broadsword already melted down to a slag heap by the beast's fiery breath. He faced the colossal, fire-breathing nightmare with nothing left but one final desperate hope. The ancient artifact, a single-shot, brass-barreled pistol recovered from a forgotten ruin. The ranger didn't hesitate. He raised the sputtering weapon, his hand steady despite the tremors of exhaustion. The dragon's eye, the size of a dinner plate, fixed on him, its maw already opening for the final, incinerating blast. This was it, the 1 in 6 chance, the moment the dice decided everything. He pulled the trigger, the pop lost in the dragon's roar. A single glowing bullet streaked across the cavern, aimed for that massive reptilian eye. Then for one heart-stopping moment, the entire world went silent. The bullet struck. The dreaded beast shuddered, its roar turning into a gurgling shriek that echoed off the stone walls. It crashed down, a monument of defeated terror. The ranger slowly lowered the smoking pistol. He hadn't just defeated a dragon, he'd beaten the odds. He rolled the 6. This game, unlike HeroQuest, can go on and on for hours. And when you finally reach the top of the dragon's tower, its climactic finish is well worth it. This was the first time I won in Talisman against my son, who happens to beat me all the time. Although the dragon's tower happens to be the most expensive, it is a lot of fun. But there's no way I would drop that much money on it. You're way better off making your own tower and dealing with a few pixelated cards. Talisman Third Edition is a classic. It's a game about making tough choices, facing challenges, and navigating a world full of both danger and glory. And all this being said, if you've ever looked at your HeroQuest board and wonder what other adventures awaited, then Talisman Third Edition is a perfect doorway into a new kind of fantasy board game. It's a journey that shares a similar vibe to HeroQuest, but offers a whole new world of adventure. And if you love 90s vintage board gaming, then this one is a must-have for your collection. As always, danger, you will soon discover, lurks in every shadow. Come, let the quest begin.